Hello and welcome to this session of the AAEE conference. You had a choice between multiple sessions, and so I do appreciate you joining me here. My name is Elizabeth Baini. I'm currently studying for my PhD in STEM teacher education at the University of Texas at El Paso. So yes, I'm joining from sunny Texas. A little about the background that I bring to this session. While my education has been in environmental science and engineering, my practice has been in educational administration. My last job, I was a K-12 school principal. I found myself many times working with my teachers on how to make learning fun for the students. I wanted to see them excited about school and motivated to learn. So for me, environmental education is a natural bridge between my training and my practice. My research interests are in active learning pedagogies, particularly in environmental education and STEM in general. So, in this session, I'm happy to share findings from a systematic review I did at the intersection between environmental education and active learning modules. So, let's dive in. Learning goals usually dictate the teacher's choice of pedagogy, and the goals of environmental education hints that learning cannot be passive. Students must have meaningful, engaging experiences that will hopefully shape their behavior. EE practice has seen a variety of learning models that offer these, and PBL, problem based learning, is just one of them. Problem-based learning literature shows evidence of fostering students' agency, intrinsic motivation, and problem-solving skills, among many other skills. The gap in the research that I hope to bridge was a comprehensive review of how PBL is implemented in environmental education across educational levels. Howard Burroughs, who is considered the father of PBL, he provides this classical definition of PBL. It says the learning that results from the process of working towards the understanding of a resolution of a problem. The problem is encountered first in the learning process. So students meet the problem first and they use it to learn the content, the processes, and the skills required of them. In this representation, of the learning PBL learning cycle provided by Melo Silva. Students work in tutorial groups, usually between 5 to 8 people, to determine what they already know about the problem and what other information they need to know to solve the problem. They divide these learning tasks amongst themselves and go on to do individual research or learning. Then they return to the group with their findings to try and solve the problem. They go through this iterative process and finally present their solution to the class. The teacher's role therefore shifts to one of a facilitator. For a good PBL session, the teacher must be able to craft a problem that is both adequately complex, that is requires group effort, and also ill-structured, so it doesn't only have one correct answer. PBL will therefore fall around here on the spectrum. With this very simplified overview of PBL, the goal of this review was to explore two things. One, how PBL is used in environmental education, and two, PBL's impact on achieving the goals of environmental education, which are developing environmental awareness, building skills and understanding, shaping pro-environmental attitudes and values, and also developing skills for problem solving and action. This chart summarizes my review process. I limited the retrieval to papers published between 2005 and this year, so the last 2 decades, to see if the UNESCO Decade of Education for Sustainable Development had any influence on it. I also only included empirical research, so I did not include reviews, reports, or book chapters. Altogether, I ended up reviewing 52 peer-reviewed articles. I organized the results into themes. So theme one shows the publication output over time. The first peak was in 2020, and it appears researchers were quite productive during the lockdown. The second peak was in 2023. Most of the publications came from Indonesia. This may be due to the Indonesian government's focus and investment in environmental education. I was also surprised not to find anything from Finland and Canada, since both PBL and environmental education practice are very strong there. There was a wide spectrum of research methods that were employed. Most of them were experimental or quasi-experimental. I was also excited to see action research where teachers reported on their own practice. While most of the research lines were on staging an intervention of PBL in environmental education to see the outcome, quite a number also reported on the experience of both the teachers and the learners about the process. These provide very useful information on how to make adjustments. I was eager to know the experience of pre-service teachers and elementary school learners, but most of the studies used middle school and college students as participants. This could be because PBL requires a certain level of self-directed learning that young children may not have developed yet. With the right scaffolding, however, PBL has been shown to work well in other subject areas, but the teacher has to provide a lot more structure. Almost half of the studies did not specify how long the PBL implementation lasted. Many of them lasted a few class periods to a semester long. But to be able to report on how PBL has helped cause change in pro-environmental behavior and lifestyle, for example, more long-term and longitudinal studies will be needed. It was encouraging to see that many institutions have environmental education as a standalone subject area or course, but many of the studies reported that they used topics in environmental science and general science because these lend themselves more easily to teaching about the environment. There were also studies where teachers integrated environmental education in language courses and used PBL. The studies also reported a variety of other learning models that were used together with PBL to enhance the experience for students. Some reported on flipped classroom and hybrid learning environment, others integrated comics and Japanese paper theater, a variety of them including project-based learning. Now, on the research outcomes themselves, multiple studies confirm that PBL in environmental education positively affected participants' critical thinking skills, environmental literacy, attitudes towards the environment, collaboration, and problem solving. Some also reported mixed or no significant effects, which may be explained by their implementation fidelity and duration. If you don't do it the effective way and you don't do it long enough, you're not likely to see the results that you want. And that brings us back to how all this tie back into our work and practice as educators. Looking again at the goals of environmental education and the potential that PBL has in achieving these, I recommend the following actions. One, to integrate PBL into EE practice because the research is showing that it's helping students acquire the skills that's outlined in the goals. Two, to provide thorough training for both educators and learners because it may be new and different from what they are used to. And third, and very importantly, to be able to design PBL problems with actionable environmental solutions. Also, helping teachers to manage the workload and the time that the new pedagogy will present. Future research will be needed to study the long-term effect of PBL on environmental behavior, to support students' adaptation of PBL as a pedagogy, including the use of technology, to explore the implementation of PBL in fidelity, because many of the studies didn't really explicitly describe what they are doing when they say they are doing PBL, and then to also develop strategies to bridge the gap between attitude formation and actual behavior, pro-environmental behavior. And then also to investigate the role of technology in PBL. It seems to help, but exactly how is it helping? And then also to research scalable PBL models for diverse settings. The inclusion and exclusion criteria use present inherent limitations to this review. So I may have excluded very useful publications that were not written in English or used different keywords in their title and abstracts. These are a few of the references I used in this presentation. Again, I appreciate you joining me here, and I would love to connect to answer any questions or talk about anything environmental education. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the conference.